Hello you plonkers and welcome back today to another video on the Drewzy channel. Finals time baby, let's get into my 2022 AFL Finals Predictions baby. I actually haven't even done the predictor yet, so I'm going to do it as the video progresses. Make sure if you enjoy the video that you leave a like on it for me. Just click that thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. You don't want to be a filthy pig. Come and join the Plonker Army, striving for 8,000 subscribers. Follow up my Instagram and TikTok at _Drewzy for more video content. Let's get into the video. Alright, the first game of the finals, we have Brisbane versus Richmond. I'm using the squiggle predictor here. Brisbane coming into finals are the least convincing team for me. Haven't really shown much for the 2022 season. I think their best win come against Sydney earlier on, but haven't been able to recapture that form, the pressure that they brought that game. Obviously, plenty of star power. They're a great side. Coming up against Richmond. This fixture, I feel like, has been played that many times over the years. At the Gabba, Tigers, Lions in a final of some sort. This time, it's an elimination final. If you lose, you're bloody gone, mate. Richmond coming into the finals in great form. Their forward line is potent. Noah Cumberland really coming out of the woodwork this year. He's a tricky forward to handle. I said it in my 9 things we learnt. He's too tall for smalls and too quick for bigs. Obviously, Tom Lynch playing career best footy. Brings up real aerial threat, big power forward, kicks a bag of goals whenever he wants, and obviously Richmond know how to win finals. If you couldn't tell, I'm going to back Richmond to win that, kicking Brisbane out of the finals again without winning. So let's stay on this side. I think the second game is Friday night, Melbourne versus Sydney at the MCG. I went to this fixture earlier in the season when I was over in Melbourne. Melbourne were controlling proceedings for the first half, I suppose, and then Sydney just came out in that second half. Momentum shifted and it was all the bloody Bloods. So this is going to be a tricky game. The Swans are going to come into this with a lot of confidence from that last win, but Melbourne are in some real scary form at the same time, obviously belting Brisbane last week out of the top 4. I just think the experience of Melbourne, their midfield, I think, is just a touch stronger with guys like Petrarca and Oliver versus, Luke Parker and Chad Warner. As good as those guys are, I'm just trying to fathom it in my head. Obviously, got the ruck advantage with Luke Jackson and Max Gawn. Defensively solid. I'm going to tip the D's to go through to the prelim, which will make Sydney face off against the Tigers in the semi-final. Now let's head over to the other side of the bracket. The first game we've got is Geelong versus Collingwood. I think this is the Saturday twilight game at the MCG. Geelong playing at home at the MCG. Collingwood's home. Go figure. Money talks, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be a bit controversial because I've backed the Pies just about all year long, but they can't keep winning the way that they have been winning. I think finals is a completely different landscape, and if you're losing inside 50s, contested possessions, and clearances, I think you're going to get figured out by the good sides, which clubs like Carlton are not, obviously. That's a joke, Carlton fans. It's just a bit of banter. Please don't rip my head off. Geelong are the best offensive and defensive rated team in the competition, and Collingwood almost beat them earlier in the season because Geelong started slow, but then they just turned it on and bloody got the job done. I reckon Geelong should win this game pretty comfortably, and it could be a bit of a reality check for Collingwood. So I'm going to back Geelong to win that, heading them into a prelim with Collingwood heading into the semi-final. Now, my boys, the Fremantle Dockers faced the Western Bulldogs in the first week of finals, and I'm obviously going to back Freo here. We played the Bulldogs a few weeks ago, played them off the park. It was a convincing performance. The Bulldogs are in pretty decent form, to be fair to them, and they've won the grand final from 8th position before, so I'm not saying that they can't win this game, but I think Freo's system just stacks up really well against the way that the Bulldogs play at Freo's home deck on Optus, which we play very well, and the Bulldogs lost the grand final there last year as well, so just shows we know how to play Optus better than the Doggies do when it matters, really, and for those reasons, I'm going to back Freo to get into the semi-final to face Collingwood at the MCG. Right, now this is where it gets a little bit sticky, and I'm not sure how it's going to go. There's always an upset in finals as well, you have to remember. It's never clear cut. So we're going to go to Sydney, where the Swans take on Richmond, and I just think Sydney are going to be too strong at home. They had a massive crowd there in their last home game, the 23rd man, if you will. But this will be a very tight game. I could see it going either way, to be honest. The Tigers are in great form right now, pumping teams for the last few weeks. But Sydney, they're going to be hungry to get into that prelim after falling short of the semi-final even last year. This one could be wrong, and I can't really come up with a concrete answer as to why, but I'm going to back Sydney to beat Richmond at home, which will make them play Geelong in a prelim, probably at the MCG. And then Collingwood versus Fremantle. There is going to be so much bias involved here. Collingwood, for the same reasons, really. They're not winning the most important stats of games except for getting the win. So it's a tricky one. But Freo play the MCG very well. We obviously beat Melbourne there earlier this season. I think that's actually the only game we played at the MCG. But the ground dimensions are very similar to Optus. I feel like our midfield is better than Collingwood. So if we can get on top of the contested ball, that's when we really take control of games. And if we can reduce Collingwood's chaos style, the transition footy, and set up really well behind the ball, I think we could honestly beat Collingwood and cause a massive upset. It's massively biased, but I'm on it. Collingwood are a great side and they could obviously win this game of football. I'm not saying that they can't, but I honestly just reckon the Dockers are better. When we played earlier in the season, it was a Freo off day. Collingwood won easily in the wet. If it's dry conditions, I think club v club, I don't know. I reckon Freo have had more convincing results this year. We can't forget that Collingwood haven't had a convincing win in how long now. So for that reason, I'm gonna tip a bit of a wacky one. Hate me if you want. I couldn't care less, to be fair. I'm gonna tip Freo to go into the prelim and face the D's. So then we have Geelong versus Sydney in the first prelim. Again, Geelong, they're just the best team in the competition at the moment, so there's no reason that I can really tip against them. I'm going to tip Geelong to beat Sydney in the prelim. They're just too strong all over the park, aren't they? They've got the best forward line in the competition. They've got some mids playing some real good roles at the moment. Mark Blixar's playing as a midfielder, so they've got two big bodies in there, which often wins games of football. And there is now a cat sitting behind me. Hello, Gypsy. Meow. The Cats are going to win. And then Melbourne versus Freo at the MCG. Second prelim. I'm going to tip Freo. No, obviously not. I reckon the D's will learn from their mistakes of the last game. They were all over us in that first half. If they just came out and were a bit more solid, obviously they lost Stephen May in that first half as well, which rattled them a little bit. I just think the D's are too strong. Their ball movement is elite. They've got stars all over the park who have obviously just won a flag. They're going to want to go back-to-back. And Freo are a little bit green to go all the way this year, I think. So I reckon Freo bow out in the prelim. Well done, Freo, on a great season. And I'm going to tip Melbourne to go into the grand final to take on the Geelong Cats. Now, at this point, I couldn't tell you which way it's going to go. I am genuinely 50-50 on these sides because Geelong have just been walking through teams. They haven't had a tough run home against top 8 sides. Last year in the prelim, this was a no contest. Geelong players said they were sick leading up to the game and whatnot. I'm just waffling at this point because I can't decide who I think will win the grand final. Will Melbourne go back-to-back? God, it'd be hard to tip against them. Geelong have been so consistent this year, but finals is just a different time. And I think Melbourne's best is better than anyone's. Man, this is so tricky. I'm gonna back Geelong to win the grand final in 2022. With no confidence at all, because I honestly think Melbourne can win, but it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a tough finals race. I'm saying that I'm going to back Geelong on a 50-50 coin flip. Honestly, it's going to be that close. It's about time we have a bloody close grand final. We haven't had one in a few years now. But I just reckon the Cats, all of their stats right now stack up to show that they're the best offensive and defensive rated team, as I've already said. How can you compete with that? I'm not too sure how. Geelong won their last head-to-head as well, so that sort of points to Geelong, although it was at GMHBA. Mate, it's too tight to call, but I'm going to have to choose someone. So I've gone with the Geelong Cats to win the 2022 grand final. I'm going to go Jeremy Cameron for the Norm Smith medal. So there you go. There's my finals predictions. But make sure you get your finals predictions down in the comments. Tell me who you think is going to win the flag, who's going to win in the first round of finals. Just tell me whatever you want to bloody tell me. I want to see the Plonker Army down there again in full force. Thank you for watching the video. Make sure if you enjoyed the video, just click that thumbs up button and subscribe if you're new. We'll see you in the next video. Plenty of exciting content coming soon. Until then, take care, you plonkers.